Thanks for joining us at Extend today, Sam. We are so honored to have you with us and to learn a little bit more about you and where you come from. Learn a little bit more about how you've changed and pivoted and redirected throughout your career, and really looking forward to the inspiration that you're going to provide for us today.
Well, it's a pleasure and a joy to be here with you, Mindy, and especially with your community here at Extend.
Thank you so much. Well, I'd love to just jump right in, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, of course, of course.
First of all, I think probably everybody really wants to know, what is Sam Villa's why?
Wow, great question. Well, let me take you back to the beginning in terms of where it all started and how I developed the why. It all goes back to the beginning of, I was more of an athlete than I was anything. Going to beauty school was the last thought on my mind. I worked as a child at my dad's barbershop and I shined the shoes. And I always told myself, Mindy, I said, I'm never gonna do what Dad does because he stands up on his feet all day. Sometimes the hair would be up to his ankles because I was shining shoes, didn't have time to sweep it. But isn't it interesting where life leads you? Sometimes you just don't know where you go. And here I am to this day doing what my dad did, maybe not as a barber, but as a cosmetologist. So I dropped out of college my junior year to actually go to beauty school. And I'll never forget the day when I sat with my mom and dad at dinner and I said, I want to drop out of school and go to beauty school. And my dad was kind of clapping underneath the table. And my mom was like, what? What are you talking about? You only have 1 year left. Why would you want to do that? I said, Mom, I'm a PE major. I'm going to school playing volleyball. I cut school half the time to go to the beach to play volleyball. I just want to give this a try. She said, all right, if you're going to go there to beauty school, then you're going to be responsible for your last year if that doesn't work out. So off I go to beauty school. About 3 months into beauty school, I'll never forget, maybe the 4th month, the teacher came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, Sam, your rollers are falling out underneath the dryer. You need to go put them back in, and you might want to consider, Sam, about doing something else. Mindy, I have to tell you, that was like not only a slap in the face, it was like a stunner thinking, wow, did I make the wrong career choice? So I went back, did what I was told to do, and that night I just was kind of just not feeling good in my apartment. My dad called me up and said, hey, what are you doing on Sunday? I said, Dad, I'm not doing anything. I can't afford to do anything. Let's go to a hair show. I'm going to pick you up early, be ready. He picked me up. I said, Dad, who are we going to see? He goes, we're going to see Vidal Sassoon. Now this was 1976. Most of you probably might not have even been born. But going to that show, I'll never forget my dad getting us there early, sitting in the middle, second row, and I never will forget watching these 4 guys just melt this hair. Just take long hair and just make these shapes. And I thought, I'm like a kid. I was on the edge of my seat, Mindy, and my dad pulled me back, sit back. I said, Dad, I want to do that. He said, what? I said, I want to be up there someday. I want to teach. He goes, you mean a platform artist? And I go, a platform artist? He goes, well, that's what they're called. I said, well, I want to teach. And he said, looked at me, he said, that's all ego and no money. Now you have to understand, my relationship with my father, I had to prove him wrong. So I went back to school with more intent, more purpose, an objective or a goal, if you will. But I wanted to prove to him that I could do it, and especially prove to who? My teacher, that I could do it. So my why is I chose to be a teacher. And the why behind that is I choose to make hairdressers better hairdressers. And that comes from my dad saying, if you can help people get what they want, you will get what you want. You see, Mindy, people have pushed me up to the top. I've never asked for a position. People just keep pushing me to the top and pushing me to the top. And I think that's so important. I think that's what's kept me humble. That's what's kept me real. Of course, I think gratitude is great. I pat myself on the back once in a while, but I really try to stay within my lane. So my why is to make hairdressers better hairdressers, and I choose to do that as a teacher.
I love it. And thank heavens you went to that Vidal Sassoon show all of those years ago, because we are all better because of the impact you have made on us.
Thanks, Mindy. Well, I'm not going anywhere and I'm not stopping.
Excellent. So, Sam, one of the things that we know about the industry is right now we really have to be a disruptor in the industry. And that's something that I see you do regularly. How do you feel you've been able to disrupt in this industry?
I think it goes back to a decision that I made when I started this brand. And that was, okay, I want to teach. So the first thing that my people that surrounded me said, so what do you want to do? I said, DVDs. Let's do DVDs. Now, DVDs have been done before, educational DVDs. But I told my team, I want to do it like a cooking show. And they're like, what do you mean, Sam? I said, I want to get a camera crew, and I want to do it in an in-salon, and I want to do an in-salon program, and I want the camera crew follow me around, and I want to interact with the camera. And I want questions to be live. Do you hear the question that the stylist just asked? She's wondering if she takes out too much weight, what's going to happen? Guys, come on in, close, listen to the answer. So it's kind of like them being there with me. It wasn't a cookie cutter DVD where I stand in a studio, something like this, and I go through step 1, step 2, step 3. They actually were able to follow me around and watch the interaction I was having. So can you imagine, Mindy, the learning curve? So that was a disruption in the DVD world for someone to see something like that, where it wasn't like in a studio, it was in a salon, real live questions, real live people. It was incredible. That is what I believe put us on the map. And then being a small brand, Mindy, we didn't have a lot of money. So I saw social, I saw digital as a means of getting the voice out there. But what I told the team is, let's do small educational bites, sound bites. The millennials, whatever you want to call them, they want it now. So let's not do hour-long DVDs. Let's do 10-minute educate. Here's a piece, here's a tip, here's a trick. And I'll never forget a really close friend of mine saying, why are you calling them tricks? What are you, a magician? I go, no, I got your attention, didn't I?
I love it.
So it's the idea of things were changing. I felt we needed to evolve education, and education needed to be small sound bites, and it needed to be information that they could immediately take back to the home. So the disruption was the educational sound bites. And then when we started doing that, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I'll never forget that. That was maybe a week or 2 weeks before America's Beauty Show in Chicago, one of the largest beauty shows. And it was like, okay, it's not going to happen. New York, they were telling people to go home from the IBS show. So I told my team, gathered my team and said, the show must go on. And they're like, what are you talking about, Sam? I said, we're going to do the show just like we were at IBS, but we're going to do it digital. We're going to rotate the team, and everybody's going to get 45 minutes. And we're going to do it all day long. And we're going to sell tools. And they're like, okay. It took off, Mindy, because I believe we were one of the first to jump on digital education in terms of during COVID, and continually giving them education. And it was free. So that was the disruption that we created. I mean, even our friends at Pivot Point say, you were the first. A lot of people say, you were the first. But it's not a matter of being the first. It was a matter of creating disruption. You see, I really believe, Mindy, disruption is just an interruption. That's all it is. But it's how you take that interruption and turn it into a positive, how you turn it into wealth. And I really believe that in this industry, communication builds wealth. How you communicate with your clients, how I communicate to an audience as an educator, how we communicate from salon to salon, artist to artist, brands to brands. But I really believe that was the disruption, was the educational side and sound bites, short little pieces of education, those little tips and tricks that really created disruption. You know, one of the things that was told to me, Sam, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. That's what they're going to remember, is how you say something. And I think what people got out of that was they could see Sam's taken a total different approach. And it was about the fact that I totally believed in it. I totally believed that that was the way it was going to go. I believed that was the right way to go. But I got to tell you, Mindy, I've fallen down along my career. I've fallen down so many times. And yeah, I've heard that phrase, you know, you fall down 10, stand up 12. But I want to tell the community out there, when you fall down, I want you to look down what's down there. Examine what's down there. You're falling down for a reason. There's something down there that you have an opportunity to pick up, fix it, and bring it back up with you. And I think that's the courage of, you know, have a belief system, have the courage that what you're about to do on a client, you believe it's for that person, not for you, but it's going to fit that person. And that's how, you know, success is built. Let what your beliefs drive you to the success, but let people push you to that success.
I love that. I love the idea of letting people push us to that success, because we can want it all day long.
Oh yeah. Well, you know who builds you up at a salon is your clients. Mm-hmm. Why? What do? They go tell other people about you. So they're building your success behind the chair. And I think that's so important, is, you know, I really believe your smile is your business card. Your personality is your logo, and how people feel when they walk away after experiencing you is your trademark. And I think hairdressers at the chair, you have to remember that. Whatever's going on in your life, as soon as you put your hand on that salon door, leave it outside the salon and focus on that person. I can't tell you, Mindy, the formula for success, but I will tell you, my friends, the formula for failure is trying to please everybody. You have to know you're not going to please everybody at the chair. Yet, as long as I know I put out 150% of my knowledge, of my attention, with intent and purpose, and they're not happy, they're unhappy, that's not my problem. That's their problem. So, I can't tell you the formula for success, but the formula for failure is trying to please everybody. We're just not going to please everybody.
Sam, I've heard you talk about how when you were younger, you worked in your father's barbershop growing up. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that helped you become the successful stylist that you are today.
Well, at that time, little did I know that I was actually learning at that moment. I wanted to be where I should be, where I thought I should be, which was playing with the kids, with my friends. I'll never forget Saturday mornings, like at 7 a.m. in the summertime, driving down the street, our street where we lived, and seeing all my friends outside at 7 a.m. in the summertime playing. And I'm in the car heading to go shine the shoes and work in Dad's shop. But I'm grateful for that moment and that time because it taught me a lot about discipline. It taught me a lot about responsibility. Like, I'll never forget my dad saying, shine those shoes with passion. And I'm thinking, with passion, Dad, what are you talking about? He goes, put some energy into it. Snap the towel. You're going to get better tips. Little did I know that's going to get me better. Sure enough, he showed me how to snap it and showed me how to put some energy into it. Be animated. What did he say? He said, give them a show. I'm like, that was a huge learning lesson for me because what it did was the tips went up, but he taught me I got their attention. So putting that energy and that passion in shining the shoes, I hope that you see I put the energy and passion into when I teach, and that enthusiasm, it just comes out. But that was a huge learning curve for me at the moment. I didn't know that at that time. But I'll never forget the words that I heard, shine those shoes with passion, son. Shine them with passion. Dad, what do you mean? Energy, enthusiasm, show it, And that was a huge learning lesson for me. So in my teachings, I try to show that passion, that sense of enthusiasm. And that goes along with that phrase, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, that they will remember things. The other thing is it taught me responsibility in terms of understanding that was a responsibility that my dad made me understand. This is a responsibility, you now have a job. Okay, now, this is your money, not taking your money from you. But now let me show you how to spend your money, how to save your money. And I think I was like 11 or 12 at the time. So that whole thing, I mean, when you're a kid, you don't know. You hate things that you're told to do by your parents. But at that time, little did I know, it was so impactful for me as I grew up and said, oh, I remember Dad used to say this. I remember watching Dad, and Dad would do this. One of the things that he was really big on was customer service and how he treated people. One of the things that he was great was making a connection with everybody that walked in that door. You could show that he devoted his time to them, that moment and that time. So it was all about it not only being service oriented, but you could tell he wanted to be their friend. Now, maybe in today's world it's quite different, but it's important to make a connection. I believe we make a connection today by educating the consumer.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Thank you for sharing those memories with us. I think going back to our earlier conversation, it's as if from the time you were little, you were really raised to be a leader and to be a showman and to really engage your audience, and while they are learning from you at the same time. So what an incredibly beautiful journey, and how grateful we are that your dad taught you those things from such an early age, because it has been so impactful for so many.
And one thing, Mindy, is my dad was one of my biggest fans. He would always be at the front row in the Redken Symposium. He'd always be at every show that he could attend. He was there. So one time, I will never forget a Redken Symposium show. I actually had him open the show. And it was a class that the Redken called me in the office and said, you're going to have your own classroom, just you by yourself. Now, at that time, that was unheard of. You were always teamed up with a partner, stage partner. I said, really? They go, no, you're ready. And the name of your class is Sam I Am. And I'm like, Sam, I am, but I don't like that. It's got the I word in it. It's got my name in it. They go, Sam, get over your humble little self. Go back and take that title, Sam I Am, like Dr. Seuss, and tell the audience how you got where you're at. Create a story. So that story was about the barbershop. And I'll never forget, the opening scene was a barbershop chair with my dad cutting my brother's hair. And I was on a park bench, falling asleep dreaming, and I was dreaming, telling the audience how I was dreaming about, I remember the days when I was in the barbershop shining shoes, and we hired a little boy that looked like me, and we taught him how to shine shoes. So that was like a moment, and one of the many moments in my career that I'll never forget. Just having my dad there and having him be part of the show was just a huge, huge accomplishment for me. It was like an opportunity for my dad to shine, if you will.
Sam, you've been behind the chair, an educator, and now you're the Chief Creative Officer for Redken. These are some pretty big transformations and transitions in your life. Tell me a little bit about how those impacted you. Were they difficult transitions to go from behind the chair to an educator?
Well, it's interesting. Chief Creative Officer of Sam Villa, Global Artistic Ambassador for Redken. But what's interesting about the journey is, first of all, it started behind the chair. Yet, if you go back to that story in school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So immediately, you know, the people I practiced on was the person in my chair, teaching them how to work with their hair. Then I would I was the easiest ticket sale. I would buy any salesman that came in, sales consultant that came in, they said, Sam will buy a ticket. He buys a ticket to every show. And there I'd go to shows, and then I'd come back, and the team that I worked with say, so what did you learn, Sam? Can you show us? So I would share it with them and teach them. So as a hairdresser at the chair, I knew what I wanted to do, so I would focus and practice on that. And then when it transitioned to a company as an artistic director, I'll never forget, the CEO of that particular company came in and booked an appointment. Didn't tell me who she was, just I thought a normal. Then at the end of the appointment, she goes, I'm so-and-so. I am the president and CEO of this company, and we would like to hire you as a platform artist. And I thought, wow. She goes, you just passed your audition. So that's where it started. Then it went to that, and that's where I became artistic director. And I didn't really know what artistic director meant. So I did a lot of research and started really thinking, oh, I've got to develop, I've got to grow, I've got to develop trends, develop techniques, if you will. But when you think about it, everything's been done. And I'll never forget doing that. I worked with this company. Then my dad always said, why don't you get with Redken? You need to be with Redken, because he was a Redken for men in his barbershop. So he would go to all the Redken shows. So finally I received a phone call from him, we'd like you to join us and blah, 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 and do an audition and everything. And I'll never forget, Mindy, that audition. It was on a particular Monday. It was a weekend that I would go to London, and it was where I blocked myself off to do it like a sabbatical, and I'd go to Salon International and I'd just immerse myself in education. And then I'd come back, share it with my team, and have a little event and invite the salons around. I'll never forget coming back, and I came back early to make that audition. And they moved, I went by the salon, picked up my mail, and there's a bunch of mail, and I noticed there's an envelope from Redken. Didn't recognize, didn't pay attention to it. Put all the mail, went and picked up my model, went to the audition, and I said, hi. And this was at the Hyatt Regency in San Francisco. I said, I'm here for an audition. And they go, with who? I go, with Redken. And they go, sir, they were here yesterday. They're not here today. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I have an interview with them. I have an audition. No, sir, they were here yesterday. And I'm like, that envelope. So I opened up the envelope. Sure enough, they moved my audition a day earlier. So I missed it. So I thought, oh God, I've got to get a hold of this lady, Terry Donnelly. So the concierge guys, I was getting to know them and said, oh my gosh, I missed it. Can you get this letter up to this lady? She's still here. I checked. She's still here. Can you slide this underneath her door? And it was a letter explaining to her my situation. So I'm looking around the hotel, seeing maybe if she's in breakfast, because she wasn't there. He said, she didn't get the letter, don't know. So I thought, oh, well, now I had half my model's hair cut and the other half not cut, because that's how you had to show up. So I thought, you know what, we're looking around for her. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to make it. She's gone. So I said, you go home. She goes, yeah, I'm going to go home. You're a little stressed. You can cut my hair, cut the other half tomorrow. So then I get in my car to leave after I spend another half hour. The concierge guy comes out and says, hey, that lady you're looking for is on the phone. I go, what? She wants to talk to you. So I'm like, Terry, blah, 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 blah. She goes, listen, I read your letter. You're fine. I got the room back. Let's do your audition now. I said, Terry, I sent my model away. She goes, well, you're a man of show experienced. You have half an hour to get a model. And I thought, yes, I can do it. So now imagine I'm going around the Hyatt Regency. I've got my portfolio, but it's all avant-garde. So I'm going up to people and showing them. Meanwhile, this concierge guy, he's looking, watching me. And he goes like this. And I go, I'm in trouble. I'm bothering their clients. He goes, what are you doing? I go, I missed my audition. I need my model. I sent my model home. I need a model. I got to have her done in half an hour. He goes, hold on. He goes in the back. He comes back out. He says, I have a lady that's coming on her shift. I'm going to cover her. She'll model for you. She said she'll model for you. So I said, great. So she comes out, kinky, curly hair. And I go, oh my gosh. So she goes, you can cut it all off. Do whatever you want. So I cut her in this Sassoon cut, a Nefertiti, where it's short here to long back here, and I did half the head, really quick. Terry comes in, who's doing the audition. She goes, oh my God, you not only got a model, you cut half her hair. So then she said, are you ready? I said, yeah, I'm ready. She had a little stage and everything for me, and she's sitting at a table by herself. So I said, are you ready? And she said, yes. So I run out the room, and she's watching me run out the room. She's like, did he have to go to the men's room or what? And then I open the door. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Redken, Sam Villa. And she's like, there's nobody in the room. What's he doing? So I come up, I'm going, hi, how are you? And I start cutting. Now, Mindy, she's taking notes furiously. And I'm like, my little voice is talking to me going, oh boy, you're blowing it. But then it says, just trust yourself, keep going. So I complete the haircut. She comes up, she goes, let me check it. She checks, she goes, beautiful. The model leaves, she goes, have a seat. She looks at me, she goes, I hate to tell you this. And I'm like, oh, I blew it. She goes, you're overqualified. I go, what do you mean I'm overqualified? She goes, Sam, you need to be at the top tier where Redken Artists. You need to be a tier 4, level 4, national performing artist. And I go, she goes, but I'm not going to put you there because then you're jumping over too many people, and all they're going to do in the model room when they're working for you or working with you, they're going to stab you in the back because you didn't pay your dues. So here's what we're going to do. I want you. You're going to come on board, but I'm going to start you down here, and your fee's going to be here. We'll get you where you want your fee, but I want you to just come in and do what you do. Let them say, what is he? He needs to be here. He needs, and that's exactly what happened. So the idea was at that time, that was how I progressed over to Redken. And then at that time, the transition for me was made comfortable. It was made comfortable for her because of the position she put me in. Eventually, you know, within 6 months, I was at the top level because they could see this guy's qualified to be here. We could learn a lot from him. So every stage of where I went from behind the chair to being a teacher for a brand to having my own brand, there's always a transition in there. The transition to having my own brand is learning to trust the team around me and accepting the word no. Meaning, I'd go to my team and say, I want to make this tool. It's going to be great. We need to make this. And they'd go, no. And I go, what do you mean no? It's my name, it's the company, I want this tool. They go, no, we can't afford that tool in this budget. Here's your hit list of 20 tools. You can afford this one. We'll do this one. I go, no, but this one's a price. No, we can't afford it. We can do this. But I've learned to accept the no because I've learned the business side. That was a big transition for me, was learning that business side. The art side and the technical side and the teaching side, I had that, but I had so much. So that was, if there was a transition that was really difficult to work with, it was a transition of moving from working with a brand, which I still do now, but also being a leader within my own brand, within my own company.
I love that. One thing that really struck me there was that little voice inside of your head said, maybe not, maybe this isn't going to work out the way that you're anticipating. And then you're like, but I just put it down and I just kept doing it. And I love that because all of us have that little voice. And I think that one of our biggest obstacles is not listening to that, not allowing that to bring us down, but to just know that the sky is the limit and we can do it. And just a little bit of good old-fashioned ingenuity is going to help us all get much further in life.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of times what people do is they you know, like, why not me? Or do they like me? Or did they like what I did? Or do they like the photo? Do they like the haircut? That kind of thing. It's so much, you know, that there's so much pressure on that. And, you know, it's about succeeding, if you put so much pressure on succeeding, I think there comes that pressure of failure. If you put so much pressure on being accepted in life, comes a fear of rejection. So it's about letting go. And what I'm talking about is let go of the ego. Imagine this, L-E-T and then G-O under the E. So it's about letting you go of your ego, because it's the ego that creates the fear. But what we have to learn, especially as hairdressers, I believe, is that we need to understand ego is great, but how do you manage your ego? That's critical. And I think as a teacher, a lot of times too many artists are concerned, well, how do I look on stage? How is my haircut? Do you like it? Can you imagine you're in a room of 5,000 people at Royal Albert Hall in London, and you have this main big European hairdresser on stage. He cuts his model's hair, and then he goes, how do you like it? And you hear 2 claps. One of the biggest things that I learned was, don't ask what you don't want to hear back. So it's never about, do they like it? It's about, ask yourself, do they get it? Did I explain it in a simple way that they were able to comprehend it and take it back to their salon and make it work for them in their own way? People think that being creative is being weird. Anybody can be weird. Being weird is simple, but taking the things that you see as complicated and making them simple, that's when people discover that they have creativity inside of them, because we're all born with it. But I think a lot of people tend to suppress it because of the fact that, well, people don't like me, or I don't look like that person, or I don't sound like that person, or I'm not as good as that person. It's about, your core, and as long as you believe in yourself, you're going to be fine. And I think that's important for the community to realize out there at the chair, too.
So, Sam, what would be some advice that you have to somebody who wants to follow in your footsteps?
Wow. Well, the easiest piece of advice that I can give is based upon what I've experienced. It's not, people go, well, who do you want to be? I mean, you can determine who you want to be, but how do you want to be that person? I think is important. What hit me was when that teacher said, you need to go back and put the rollers in, and I think you might want to do something else. Here's what I could say to you, for those of you who choose to follow in footsteps, is focus on how you can versus why you can't. Too many people focus on, well, I can never be like Sam. First of all, there's never going to be another Sam, but there can be another you that maybe has the belief system, that has maybe the mentality, or the embraces the comfort side of Sam. But you will always be who you are. But if I can do it, you can do it. And I think it's so important people understand. Can you imagine, Mindy, had I taken that comment from that teacher and literally taken it, I could have easily quit that day. Where would I be today? What would I be doing? I feel I have an impact on the industry. We may be a small brand, but we have a mighty voice in the industry. And I think people believe in our voice because we come from a place of caring. We come from a place of genuine concern. We come from a place of simplicity. We come from a place of caring. The tools are made ergonomically. Why? Because I've experienced pain, and I want to make sure that these hairdressers have a long career. That's why I started the tool company. Plus, one of the reasons why I started was I needed an exit plan. I know you guys are going to be out there and you're going to say, oh, I've seen Sam before. He's been around a long time. Let's go watch somebody else. See, that's why it's so important that I continue to reinvent myself. And, if I can find 5 ways to cut a one-length bob, I'm going to find 5 ways to do it, not just one. Why? Because it creates a sense of enthusiasm. It creates a challenge. And that's important. Don't fall in love with one technique or one look. Really, it's our responsibility to really master all textures of hair. That's critical in today's world.
I love that. And I think you're absolutely right. Just when you use the word responsibility, it is our responsibility as stylists and as hopefully leaders in our own community to grow and to shift, but also to continue to educate ourselves and to better ourselves and find those other ways. If somebody says there's only one way to cut a bob, find another way.
Yep. I totally agree with that. I mean, as a teacher, I must never cease to learn. But I want you to remember out there, as a hairdresser, you must never cease to learn, because there's always something to learn. And that's the advice that I would give to these young people. Always, always. Education, education, education. And the second phase of that is practice, practice, practice. I mean, coming, in July and August, there's going to be people, somebody's going to become very famous this year. I mean, extremely famous, that their picture's going to be on a Wheaties box. And I'm talking about the Olympics, Summer Olympics, because there's somebody that's been training for years and years and years that's going to win a gold medal. That's their prize, is that gold medal. But what it's going to do and how it's going to elevate them. But the reason they got that medal is because they did what? Practice, 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 practice. And that's what I highly recommend out there. Like people say, did you invent that technique? I haven't invented anything. I see people do things and I take them as a teacher and I say, how can I make that simple? And then what surprisingly happens is sometimes when you experiment, when you make something, trying to make it simple, you discover something. Oh, how about if I do it this way? And it's the discovery that's huge. It's that discovery that creates such a positive, enthusiastic attitude. And attitude is contagious.
Tell me about your most favorite professional memory.
Wow. I've had so many. I mean, the places that I've seen, the people I've met, I mean, I sometimes wonder, had I not chosen this career, had I seen those places? I mean, some of the places I've been to, I never thought that I would get there. But my most impactful memory is the Lifetime Achievement Award at the North American Hairdressing Awards. First of all, when I got the word that I was receiving that, I thought, am I getting old? And are they expecting me to retire? But no, they said, no, you are at a point where you've done so much for the industry that you deserve this. But see, it's not the award. What it was the recognition. It was the fact that they were recognizing what or how I've impacted the industry up to this point. And you can't pay me enough for that. You know, the award just confirms the commitment that I have and what I'm doing is working. But that was impactful because that comes, you know, from your colleagues, from your surroundings, and I'll never forget the people that were there and the applause and the energy that I felt in the room that night, and having my family there, my mom, my brother, my sister, my wife. I mean, it was an incredible moment that I'll never forget. And I've had a lot of fun moments, but that one really impacted me in terms of, like, you know, sometimes you just got to know, am I in the right place? Am I okay? Am I doing okay? Am I doing the right thing? And what that did was, that moment answered all of those questions. So that, and I got to tell you, it was interesting because that empowered me even more to go out there and say, okay, let's reinvent myself. Let's do this again. And let's figure out how I can reinvent myself. People say, how much more years you have left? You know, I'm not young. I think I've got probably about 10, 15 years left. Yeah, about 10, 15 years left. That I'm not going to stop. I mean, I really don't think you retire in this industry. The beauty industry keeps us going.
So true. I think the word concrete comes to mind when you talk about, like, having your family and all of these people who love you there to celebrate with you and be there with you that night. It must have been so just concrete to put it all together in one place and to really help you feel like that permanent place in history as a stylist. I mean, because that really does put you on the map of stylists.
Interesting you say that, because I'll never forget that night. After it was all said and done, going back to my room and putting my head on that pillow, and I'll never forget the first word, wow. It was like, wow, what just happened? And then reliving everything from the beginning up to that point. I'll never forget doing that night. And, you know, it brought up a lot of emotion, you know, because there was a lot going through that journey. Yet at that moment in that time was so grateful, empowering, because it really made me feel good about what I've been doing for all those, 40 years, 35, 38 years, it's been worth it. It's been worth it.
I love that. I imagine that I probably would have just cried my eyes out, just out of all of the emotion that would come in those 38 years, the highs, the lows, the peaks, the valleys. I think it would be such a cumulative moment of this is it. This is the moment.
Mindy, imagine the people that had that award before I did. I mean, you're talking icons in the industry that I always looked up, and then to be considered or even to sit or stand by those people was overwhelming, incredible. There's an all-around good feeling. I'll never forget that night.
One thing I really admire about you, Sam, is your passion about the industry, and in particular, your Artists Supporting Artists platform. Tell me a little bit about how you started it and how you continue to build it.
Well, I've always been about, if I can help people get what they want, I'll get what I want. And that kind of comes from that. And I've got a great, who's now our cultural ambassador, our education director, Andrew Crothers. We were sitting, I remember us having a conference call one day, and said, Andrew, he said, Sam, you're always about the artists. You're always about the artists. You're about, you embrace everybody, you embrace all the brands. He goes, we need a hashtag. We need to come up with a hashtag for our platforms. And I said, well, what do you think? And he said, hashtag Artists Supporting Artists. And I'm like, artists support? He goes, because that's what I think of you. You are constantly supporting other artists. Doesn't matter what brand that they're with. You give, 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 give. He goes, but that's the culture of the brand that I feel, Sam. So he was saying hashtag Artists Supporting Artists. So it fits into the culture of the brand where our goal is to support the artists. It's plain and simple. Support them with the proper tools and support them with the proper education. I'll pull out the avant-garde when I have to. I'll pull out that glitzy stuff when I have to. But the focus is on the brand being the hairdresser's hairdresser. Giving them the tools and the information they can immediately take back to the salon. Like a lot of times, salon owners will say, Sam, I need you to come in and do an in-salon class. The last class we had was too much over the edge. It was just, the section, the amount it took, and the haircut is just too much over there. I need something that they can use immediately. And that, when I would continually hear that sparked me to say, you know what, this is about them. It's not about us and creating a cool brand. We can still be cool without doing all this avant-garde stuff. We'll pull it out when we need to. But the Artist Supporting Artists is now elevating into diversity. It's now moving into inclusivity. It's now in terms of the brand itself. We want to move into the texture world. We owe it. When all of this whole thing came out of Black Lives Matter, we felt we need to make a stand and we need to show that we support. And that's when we developed the show Fabric of Change. And the Fabric of Change was all about opening up our platform to all kinds of texture. And that was critical at that time. So that's that whole concept of artists supporting artists. So we're going to continue to move forward with that. It's really what the culture of Sam Villa is about. It's about not only supporting the industry, but supporting the artists, supporting the brands, and supporting salons.
Do you feel like we're in a better place as an industry now than we were 12 months ago?
No. I have to be honest and say no, but I don't think we're in a bad place. I think we're in a discovery mode right now. A discovery mode. So you can think it's bad, you can think it's good. I tend to think more on the good side about it in terms of what we're discovering. And part of that discovery is understanding that hair is hair, texture is texture, and when you define texture, it's the smoothness of a surface. It doesn't have a race. It's hair is hair. And I think that's important, that we really understand that. I think that, you can have whatever it is that you want to have, but it's about how do you go about and get it. I think people need to keep that in mind. When it comes to the social world can be detrimental. It can be really harmful. I'll never forget going into a beauty school and a student coming up to me and say, Sam Villa, my mom talks about you. She's a hairdresser. She has me following you. I go, well, how's school going? She goes, I'm probably going to quit in 2 weeks. I go, why? Well, I've been trying to do what you do and post, and all I get is, I would never get my hair cut by you. That is ugly. People commenting on her social. See, it's so easy to do this, and you don't understand who's out on the other end. You know, you could be doing this to the little girl, and maybe her mother passed away last week. I mean, that's just harmful. I think what we need to do is we need to think. So just follow me for a moment here. Follow me for this. Think. The acronym THINK. So think before you post on social. T, ask yourself before you push that button post, is it true what you're about to post? Or are you just making it up? Or is it a story that became another story, became another story? H, is it really happening, what you're saying? Do you have the facts to support that, or is it really happening? I, is it inspirational, what you're about to post? N, is it necessary to really click the post button, what you're about to post? And then K, ask yourself, is it kind? Now, if you get any negative answer to any of those, don't push the post button, because you're going to harm somebody. So all I'm asking people to do is use social. You know, my goal is to use social to grow my business. My goal is to use social and the platforms to help people grow. My goal in the social and the platforms is to be informative. My goal in the social is to upgrade the industry on our social platforms. So really, everybody just needs to think before they post. I find so many people right now say, I'm off of Facebook, I'm done. I'm done. And it's because something has harmed them. Something is affecting them. And I think social is a great thing, but it's another tool, another resource that we have, and we have to be careful how we use it.
So, Sam, one question that we get pretty regularly is, why is it so important for us to grow and change our business? And I guess one question I would have for you is, obviously, we know that it is important. And how are some ways that you grow and change your business?
Oh, that's a great question. I love this question. Change is the only thing that's constant in life. Just as the seasons change, we need to change. And what I mean by that is, look at what's happening with COVID. Okay, let's talk about one subject there, time management. How you're managing your time now in the salon is changed. You know, I don't know what area or where you're at or what your guidelines are, but a lot of people can't double book at the moment. So how are you maximizing your time? For me, it's about maximum impact with minimal effort, okay? People want in and they want out. I want you to hear that. They want in, they want out. So I'm not saying rush. What I'm saying is, if I can find another way to get this, and find another way that takes shorter time, but gives me the same impact, gives me the same result, then I'm going to go shift to this because it's going to narrow my time down. So I want everybody to understand this. Express services are something that's happening that's really big. Okay, add-on services. People go, well, I've been adding on. No, I'm talking about add-on and express service. Well, what do you mean, Sam? Okay, she comes in for a highlight. She always comes in for a highlight. Now she's coming in, but she's got this face frame angle that's grown out. Now what I would do is introduce her to an express service that maybe you call, can you imagine this, Mindy? It's called You and I. Or maybe it's called a dusting for your haircut. Now those titles, you go, Sam, what's You and I? Oh, that's just You and I, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim your fringe, trim your face frame, and you're good to go, and that's half the price of a haircut, and it's half the time. See, that's an added on express service. Color, gray camouflage. Says it on the menu, gray camouflage. Sam, what's a gray camouflage? Well, I notice you're extending your appointments, Mindy. You're extending your color, and I understand why. I said, so let's come in between that extension, come in for just a gray camouflage. Well, what's that, Sam? I just color your part, touch up your part, and your front hairline. Takes me 5 minutes to apply it, 15, 20 minutes to apply it, boom, and you're out. That's an express service. See, that's an add-on. So I think time management and how we book in the salon, and another idea that I love to give is the idea of becoming a teacher while the color is processing. Guys, if you're not doing this, Create a buzz in the salon. While that color is processing, add value to the appointment. Value is education. There's no value in the break room. The break room is a disease. The break room is where gossip happens. Get in there, do your text, get out of there. Mindy's having her color process. I'm going to come and sit with Mindy, and I'm going to take a mannequin and a tripod, and I'm going to show her how to do a ponytail, and I'm going to show her how a cool way to cover the elastic. And guess what, guys? Mindy's sitting there with a pixie haircut. So why am I taking the time to show her this? Because I know she has kids. I know she has daughters. I know she has granddaughters. I know she has nieces. But not only that, the other salon, the people in the salon are going, what's that guy doing over there? Oh, that's Sam, Crazy Sam. He's playing with his dolls and he's showing his client how to do some tricks and that she can do it. I love that Brady just showed her how to do. Look how he covered up that lap. You see how you're creating a buzz. See, that's time management now. And those are the things that I think are changing in the salon world. And we've got to be open to that change, guys. If you're going to go back and you're going to go back to your salon and think you're going to run it the way you used to, you're going to fall. And remember what I said, when you fall, look down there. There's some things to pick up. So I recommend you really, really immerse yourself in some business education and find out what are these salons doing to maximize their time? What are these express services that they're building and developing to maximize their time and to create more income? Remember, it's the team that you need to be concerned with, that team in your salon. Because if they're unhappy, boom, at some point, unhappiness equals exit. At some point, they will exit. So it's up to you, the salon owner, to reinvent yourself as a salon owner. Reinvent your team. Education is huge. Everybody did it. Everybody paused. Everybody, got on their laptop. It became the new classroom. And everybody's filled with education, anxious to get back behind the chair so they can utilize that information. There's a new sense of energy. Have we been dented, if you will? Dented? Yes, we have. But I tell you what, together we're going to stand back up, we're going to figure things out, and we're going to prosper together again.
Amen.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Just because it's so true.
Right? It is. I mean, people, they gotta think. Now's a great opportunity for people to change. Yeah. Embrace change. Open yourself up to change. I guarantee you, you've changed the way you are at home. You're surrounded more by family, so you've had to readjust, if you will. Well, it's the same readjustment that takes place in a salon now.
Sam, what's one thing you would tell your 21-year-old self?
Wow. It's not about me, it's about them. When I'm 20, my 21-year-old self is about, what about me? What's in it for me? I want some of that. I, me. I think, if I was 21 years old again, I would be a little bit more aware of people, and embrace people instead of being so judgmental. At that age, I just tended to be a little bit about me and about so judgmental. In other words, here's what I'm taking. Make a connection with people. So I would tell myself, my 21-year-old self, people buy people, then they buy things. So at 21, sell yourself as a person and make that connection. And then people will just really embrace you as a person. That's what I would tell my 21-year-old self.
What is the one thing that every stylist should have in their kit?
Wow. Well, I know what the colorists will have. I know what the designers have. But let's take a look at the whole picture as a stylist. God, that's like if I lived on an island, what would I have with me? What would I have in my kit? Okay. I think it's the obvious for me. It's going to be a pair of shears. And a pair of shears, why? Because I think, there's a lot of artists out there that say, Sam, I don't use a razor, I don't use a texture shear, I can do everything with a shear. And I think it's important to understand all tools. But if I could have one item, it'd probably be a pair of shears. And why? Because hair grows. And at some point, at some point in the majority of people, it needs to be cut, shaped up or something. So I'd say the shear.
What inspires you?
People inspire me. Today's been such an inspirational day for me. Being around people, I miss that. The shows inspire me. People inspire me. I think there's inspiration around you every day. It could be a building, it could be a person, could be a picture, could be a photo, could be a song. But I think what inspires me is, let me say this, okay? I know when I get in my car today and drive home, I'm going to be high as a kite. And I mean that in a way like, I feel so good leaving here today because I really feel I've helped people. Now that's inspiration. You can't pay anybody enough for that. So that's what inspires me, just doing what I continue to do, is being the teacher, but research is critical. And a lot of inspiration comes from that research.
Sam, thank you so much for your time today. Again, just what an inspiration you are to so many. I would love to hear, what is your personal motto?
Wow. I would have to say, because of what I've gone through in my life as a child, other people telling me I can't, and other people telling me, no, it will never happen. You're never going to be a good baseball player. And I was. I made all-stars. You're too small. So focus on how I can versus why I can't. Because if they can do it, I can do it. You see, Mindy, there's no difference between you and I. People say, oh, Sam, I wish I could be like you. I'm going, then be like me. Oh, I'll never get where you're at. You know, focus on how you can versus why you can't. Because if I can, you can. The only difference between you and I, because we're both human beings, but the only difference between you and I is I've practiced these things a little bit more. And that's the difference. So that would be my motto, my personal motto. Focus on how I can versus why I can't. Because too many times in my life I've been told I can't. Especially now in today's world, you know, people are going through so much right now. It's important for them to understand, you know, you're going to get by it. You're going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. It's just maybe it's tough at the moment. But stay focused with intent and purpose, you know, with intent and purpose. It goes back to that phrase I love. You know, success is like chasing that butterfly. The more you chase it, the more it eludes you. But if you just focus on the task that's in front of you at that moment, success will land softly on your shoulder.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Extend. I hope you've enjoyed the event like I have. Thanks for your time.